So back in 2020, I had these three young black dudes that were working for me. I was, I don't know, 34, 35-year-old white guy, just moved back to the Chicago suburbs after getting out of the Marines. These are three young black dudes, 19, 20, 21, all from the south side of Chicago. And I was working in the time at mobile forensic data acquisition. Basically, plug in your cell phone, get all the data, user-friendly format. I was helping the Crimes Against Kids Task Force bust pedophiles. I was setting up some overseas programs for some intelligence personnel. And I was explaining to these guys as to why people were becoming so divisive within America and how it had to do with our computer search algorithms. And to illustrate the point, I had the one guy, Malik, pull out his cell phone. I pulled out my cell phone, and we both Googled Donald Trump. And we each got completely opposite search results. But what was really interesting about this is that not only did we get opposite search results, but they were very incendiary. So everything on Malik's phone was about white people, oppression, racism, Donald Trump. Everything on my phone was Black Lives Matter, corruption, all this high crime stuff in Chicago, or whatever it was. And we were stunned to be like, man, this is crazy to see how immediate the results were to be so divisive between two people from varying demographics. And what we started to do was to Google some other words and phrases to see how different those also might be. But what happened was really interesting. When we did the second Google search, we cleared the queue, did the search, and our results were actually exactly the same. So we're like, okay, well, that's kind of strange. Maybe it's just for big topics. And I was even confused a little bit because I understood how search algorithms worked, how it resonates with the survivalist portion of our brain. If it bleeds, it reads, and why that is. But we tried it again. And what was crazy is we went back to Donald Trump, and again, our search results were exactly the same. And that's when it hit me that the computer systems, the algorithms were so advanced. And this is back in 2020, so they're infinitely more advanced now, crazy much more advanced now. I don't even know if this exact thing would work, but it serves to illustrate the point. The search algorithms are so advanced that it knew, based off our geographic location when we were Googling the data, the information, that we were next to each other. And instead of giving us different search results, it gave us the exact same search results. And so therefore, it wouldn't be obvious to the users that something was happening, something was taking place that would show the divisiveness purposefully being propagated by these algorithms, these major data holding companies like Google. And so in real time, we were able to actually witness, one, the divisiveness that takes place, but two, how sophisticated the machines are so that it does not get caught being divisive when people are next to each other Googling the same stuff, because you got to think about a group of people being next together Googling whatever, pickle juice, and they don't want to get different answers. Everybody should be getting the same answer whenever they're located next to each other, because then when they're apart, they're going to assume that everybody else is getting the exact same search results as everybody else. I search something, I assume on the other side of the world or city or whatever, you're getting the same search results, but that's actually not the case. And so why is this important? It's important because our brain has several big priorities, but the number one priority is survival, the avoidance of death and pain or degradation of lifestyle. So keep us alive, conserve energy, keep the quality of life that we have going. That's like at the very, I'd say, top of the priority list, but really it's at the very base of the brain in terms of priority, because you have the cerebellum, the limbic system, and then the cerebral cortex, the logical part of our brain. The cerebellum is the primitive survivalist portions of our day-to-day life. The limbic system is the emotional center of the brain, and somewhere in between there's these networks of neurons that are connected, and that's where your subconscious or your unconscious brain exists, and that is always going to prioritize survival over everything else, energy conservation over everything else, because our brain at the unconscious primitive level doesn't know that we live with society, grocery stores, and all this other stuff. It just knows, hey, I have energy now, cool, let's conserve it, be lazy. Very simple resolution. This is important to know because news propagates fear. Why? Because we cannot help but look at it at the most primitive, unconscious levels of our existence. Every fiber in our body is dying to know any and all information that is going to be related to our survival. That's why we want to stay in the know, be informed, know what's going on in the world, because we want to be able to adapt and to overcome and to thrive in any variety of situations whatsoever. But we of course need to have the information prior to it being here so that we can be proactive rather than reactive or responsive. And so news corporations use that as a means of garnering our attention by keeping us glued onto the screen, clicks, and so forth. That's why we have a lot of clickbait these days. However, this is important to understand because you have a digital avatar, your marketing ID number, all that stuff, whatever it is. Each company, the government agencies, everybody has like this picture of you. And especially people like Google, Facebook, things like that, have a incredibly accurate version of you. They know every single thing you do. When you zoom in on the screen, on that chick's tits, when you zoom in on that dude's butt, when you hide your Google search, how long you stay places, when you're scrolling up, where you stop, what your keystrokes are like, all that information, when you're doing it, time of day, where you're at in the house, they have it all. So they actually know what you're going to do before you even do it, which is why you get random notifications at times on your phone. And if you haven't seen the movie Social Dilemma, check it out. It's crazy. You need to watch the Social Dilemma because they explain how they exploit all this. So when we get information fed to us, whether it's about UFOs or drones or missing radioactive material or kids stuck in the back of a truck that were uncovered, immigration, certain policies, economics, world destruction, new world order, you have to keep in mind that you're being fed that information on purpose, because based off your digital avatar, based off your search history, based off of your demographic, you have proven to be most likely to be engaged with that type of information, which further perpetuates your belief systems into thinking X, Y, or Z. Now, the real reason why this is being done to us at such a massive scale ever since 2020 is because of something called PSYOPS, psychological operations, otherwise known as information operations. Psychological, warfare is a campaign that gets run against the population, otherwise known as the center of gravity. Center of gravity is the linchpin in a conflict that can determine success or failure. And when it comes to any sort of national dominance or global dominance, the linchpin is always going to be the population. That is always going to be the center of gravity. So how do you control people without oppressing them physically? It's through the emotional channels of that person. If you can cause an emotional response in a person to sway them left, right, up, down, whatever it is, by giving them that type of information, that type of news that's going to elicit that type of response from them based off their avatar, their digital profile, then you now successfully have control over that individual, that sway of people, that collective group. And where this gets really dangerous is that we talk about something called critical mass. When you can influence 3% of any population, any demographic within a constrained geographic region, 3%, that's it. What happens is that 3% ends up flipping the switch and influencing the rest, the other 97%, or probably like 80%, 77% roughly, of the population in the area. That's massive numbers with just a little bit of leverage. And this is all done, again, by giving you information that's designed to elicit an emotional response from you based off your digital avatar, your historic profile, your behaviors, your mannerisms, the things you think, write about, talk about. That's all done on purpose to give you an emotional response in any direction, because after they've got you going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for quite some time, now they know when they can switch you, when they can pull you back, when they can throw you, when they can pull you in, when they can push you, and when they can pull you out of it. And that becomes very, very dangerous because you are now being controlled and conditioned by the information that you're taking in and reading, your environment, as opposed to your own internal self. So be very cautious whenever you are reading information on any news source from anybody these days, because who really knows what's real out there? Now, what could we do to overcome this? Well, the first and foremost, the best, greatest resolution, what I found to be the best is fucking ignore it. And you'll say, well, how do you stay informed? Well, I don't really care too much about being informed about all the bullshit that's out there. Why? Because if the worst case scenario happens, nuclear blast, society collapses, do I have a plan to get my family to safety? Can I sustain my family and get us to somewhere that matters? And the answer is yes. So if that's the case, and I have a plan, I don't really need to worry about anything else in between. Sure, I'll keep my ears, kind of like touching in every now and then. I'll check in every now and then. But ultimately, worst case scenario, do I have a plan? Yes. That means I have a plan then for everything else in between. Because if I have enough supplies and sustenance and a good enough plan for the worst case, everything else in between is covered. And so I recommend to you all to have that plan. And what does that plan look like for me? Well, I'll explain that in another video. But I would encourage you to watch that and take it very seriously and follow through with the preparation that is required to alleviate that level of anxiety and stress, to alleviate that emotional elicitation that we are all being garnered by people who want to control us. The next thing that you could do in order to maintain your strength against it is work out every day. Physical exercise, self-inflicted adversity, it sucks, it's miserable, but that's the point. Because when you can force yourself to do something that you definitely don't want to do, well, nothing else around you is ever as hard. And so therefore, not only will you be more resilient against the bullshit being propagated consistently in your environment, but when something bad actually does happen in life, you're going to be that much more prepared and that much more stronger than everybody else around you, which means that you're going to do good. You're going to do just fine. And so I really encourage you guys to take that approach, have preparation for the worst scenario so that nothing else really matters in between, because you're ready for it, you're prepared. Continue to refine your skills, continue to train, and inflict that adversity upon yourself every single day so that you are mentally and emotionally capable of persevering, succeeding in the face of that adversity. So I'll put out a video on what my plan looks like whenever I have time, and if you have any questions, reach out. Until then, guys, take care, stay strong, and just remember that this isn't just some company slogan. Those capable of great lethality are capable of preserving great peace. Internally and externally, guys. I want you to think about that and what that saying, that statement means to you. All right, take care.